All right, call this regular monthly meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Today's date, April 8th, 2026. Thanks for all attending tonight's meeting. Before we begin, I'd like to state that the Planning Commission meetings are open to the public in person and via a Microsoft Teams streaming application. All Planning Commission meeting information can be found on the Town of Monument website. The Planning Commission's role is to conduct public hearings and to make recommendations for the Town Council regarding land use matters in the Town of Monument. Each commissioner agrees to a non-partial, objective, and fair review, which includes no prejudgment of the projects. Should a commissioner wish to disqualify him or herself for any conflicts of personal or financial interest in this matter before us tonight, please say so now. For those attending tonight who wish to provide comment on agenda items, you may speak to the commission during the public comment section of the agenda. Those who attend in person will be called upon first and are asked to come to the podium and sign in with your name and address. Those attending via Microsoft Teams will be called upon next and are asked to utilize the raise your hand option and unmute your microphone when called upon. We ask that if multiple people have the same comment, only one person speak on that same subject. Again, thanks for attending. We'll now begin with roll call.
Thank you, Chair Egley.
Here.
Vice Chair Peterson.
Here.
Commissioner Baumer.
Here.
Commissioner Hatch, not here. Commissioner Parr.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Trujillo, not here. That concludes roll call.
All right, we have a quorum and we'll go ahead and have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first matter before us tonight is the approval of minutes from our last meeting. I'll move that we approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a,
I've got 3 seconds.
we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Ray, would you mind taking the roll on that?
Yep. Thank you, Chair Egley.
Yes.
Vice Chair Peterson.
Yes.
Commissioner Baumer.
Yes.
Commissioner Hatch, not available. Commissioner Parr.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, Commissioner Trujillo also unavailable. That concludes roll call. Motion passes 4 in favor, none opposed.
Thank you. We have no public hearings on the agenda tonight, and this we'll move into the workshops portion of the agenda and turn it over to the planning department.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, thank you for coming this evening. Jenna Gorney, Senior Planner. We've met a time or two at this point. So one of our items has been taken from the agenda. They will be seen at a later time. So we're just going to move forward with the workshop. The workshop this evening, the purpose of it is to at least open a conversation on a very high level regarding design standards throughout the Town of Monument for metal buildings and potentially overall design standards, but focusing on the metal buildings, the conversation that's there. I imagine this process to be several workshops and a couple of joint workshops as well with Town Council. My initial thoughts on the direction that this workshop was going to go based on initial conversations I had heard about from Town Council was a little bit changed after feedback I heard on Monday. So I think the best place maybe to start is kind of thinking about metal buildings and what we like and what we don't like with the lens of what we may or may not have watched from Monday's Town Council meeting. Again, we're not looking to make any actions this evening. We're looking very high level, and this is going to be one of many conversations we're going to have. So overall, we're kind of looking to identify what we don't like, maybe what we do like, and maybe taking, based on what I said about this conversation may go in a different direction than anticipated. We might want to take a quick look at where some design guidelines exist for metal buildings currently in the code, and maybe think about how we could massage those guidelines and standards and grow them out for the future. So I do have a slideshow to start with, and they are really image-based per slide. I would encourage just kind of us looking at those images together and just really having some open discussion. Did we get a chance to review Monday's meeting? It's helpful to know. The feedback that we received, rather the feedback that I believed was the ideas potentially, as mentioned in my memo, I believe that it was really about a building form as opposed to metal buildings. I had anticipated our conversation this evening about being the roof lines, other architectural features that could be incorporated into a potentially square building. And maybe some of those would ease the concerns of a metal building. I thought it may be going in the direction of concerns with a building form. But my understanding is it really may be just about metal buildings. So I will start with a slideshow and let's just kind of open the conversation from there. Couple thoughts.
Just to make sure, were there any questions about Monday night? Or is there anything that you want to talk about or?
I had an initial question, I guess, after viewing the town council meeting and also looking at your notes that we had before this.
Mhm.
Really, what are we defining as a metal building? Are we defining it as the skeletal frame of the building? Are we defining it as that and the exterior? Is there a percentage of the exterior that we classify as metal that it has to meet to beyond the standard of 20,000 square feet? I guess
Great
I'm just
questions.
wondering where all that comes.
I think that's exactly the purpose of the workshop, is to start thinking about that. There are some, like a brief, wouldn't call it definition, but parameters to what a metal building would be called in our industrial section now. But we may want to establish a different version of what a metal building entails to include some more details, so there's no ambiguity there. So we probably won't come up with that today, but it's something to be considering. Yeah, we will want to have it clearly defined what we consider a metal building. So you're right on point.
What I'd like to get out of this, at some point when we're having that first joint workshop, that you as planning commission are closer to being experts than the council. I want you to be able to give them the line of thought, how it ties to code, how do we as a planning commission implement your desire as council, and how do we use the code to do that? And we've discussed and we've kind of now understand our definitions, and that's something that you're going to create, and how we apply those. So you're asking the right questions, but I want to get you to the place where you feel comfortable enough to say to the council members who will be sitting in the same circle with us, here's our understandings. How do you, what are your views and how do we do this? But I want you to be the technical expert, so to speak, with that conversation.
I guess the other question I have is, how appropriate is it for the planning commission to defer to the town council for what they want to see, rather than basically using the guidelines from the comprehensive plan, from code and everything else, because the town council is going to change, but code changes too as well. And so does the comprehensive plan occasionally every 7 or 8 years, but those are really the guiding principles. The town council may change in 2 years and have a completely different viewpoint of what we do with metal buildings, for example, or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I anticipate, like I mentioned, an iterative process here. I anticipate this conversation going several months. So we're hoping to kind of align these conversations in coordination with the comprehensive plan, so that we're coming out with a community vision instead of a vision of one group of folks. So you're absolutely on track. I feel at this point, I want to establish us as the working group for town council, and I'm feeling that they're moving in the direction of, this is kind of a directive of starting to have this conversation and working towards a solution. So we're not leaving applicants with design standards that aren't helping them, don't exist, and there's a desire when they get in front of town council to have something that they have no standards to work with. So hoping that all happens timely together in one path.
I don't want you to ever have to defer to council.
Okay,
I want you to be able to say, this is what the code says, this is what the comprehensive plan says, this is what are these documents saying, this is what we base it on. If council wants to go a different direction, that's your choice.
Yeah.
I want you to feel comfortable with knowing what you're able to do and what you're doing. I mean, you're volunteering for this role, you're here to administer the code. If the code isn't supporting something that council is asking for, we'll come back to you with a text amendment, and we'll work through that process and bring it so that we have a document that supports that. But I don't want you to ever feel like, well, I don't know what they're going to want, so let's just defer to council. That you are that sounding, you're that quasi judicial board that's administering the code and taking you're allowing the public to provide input and then you're submitting a recommendation based on the code to council. And they can do something with it, but I never want you to feel like, well, what's our purpose?
Right.
Just defer it. So that's what we're hoping. And this is the first of many times that we'll be meeting to talk about this type of stuff, because I feel that in past plan commissions, we probably haven't done enough of this, had enough of these kind of conversations. And we're trying to build and make your jobs more defined so that you can come here, spend your 2 hours at planning, not gonna put 2 hours a month. And feel that you've done what you need to do, and you're fulfilling your role, and then let the council take it from there.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Are there any other questions from the video? Because it was, thanks. Were there any other questions? I just want to make sure we're able to put the video behind us and move forward, but there was a lot to take in, so I just want to make sure there weren't any questions.
I did want to make one comment. I thought Ray handled one question about the dissenting vote on one of the issues, because you can't capture everything that goes on in the
Yeah.
planning commission meeting in the minutes. And so I appreciate what you had to say there. I think it, just like us, we have to review a lot of things. If I were on the council, I would have watched a video of the planning commission and understood exactly what
Right.
his objection might have been at that point, but I appreciate what you had said. Just wanted to add that. That's it.
Glad it was helpful. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'll be honest, I did not watch the video because I did not have time. Sorry.
No, but
But
It's fine.
top three concerns, can you sum the top three concerns about the metal buildings that were brought up on Monday? If that was the case.
So one of the concerns was specifically with an application that was being heard, and there was some carryover of language from that applicant's design guideline document onto their preliminary PUD plan that specifically said that there could be no metal buildings. I think it was carried over without some additional language. It probably could have added to the intent that was included in the design guideline booklet, but it was not listed on the plat that way. So there was some concern that they may be approving a metal building that the plat specifically didn't allow. However, that, again, even the applicant says that that wasn't the intent of that line. That line is housed within their own industrial section as well, as the same way it's reflected in ours. So unfortunately, they may be looking at some other avenues to correct that, but that was the first concern. The other one seems to just simply be following the code as it exists, in that we don't want metal buildings over 20,000 square feet. I would say Cleveland lies in those two.
Yeah.
I could expand on the nuance of that conversation, but that, I feel like that just says it.
And I think there's one more piece, but go ahead.
Signage.
Well, no, there's a question about signs, and I really didn't think that would be tonight's discussion, but we allow two different types. Basics, we allow two different types of signs. We allow pylon signs and monument signs. The Falcon Commerce Center sign is a tall monument sign that's built to height of a pylon sign. Development community and the community have been really good at using those two definitions together. And it's made, then people call pylon signs when they're really monument signs, and vice versa. We're going to work on that in our code update to make sure that it's better defined. We haven't approved literally a pylon sign in many years, but Falcon Commerce Center sign is a very tall ground sign, so it's causing some confusion. The other piece was that because Janet Brown brought up the fact that the preliminary PD for Falcon Commerce Center states that steel buildings or metal buildings are prohibited. I didn't catch that. My department didn't catch that, so the council relies on you to catch everything. My job is to do that, and that's what the three of us, we should have caught that. We missed it, and we will be with the proper resources. We will catch them in the future there, but I never expect you to, I want you to review all the documents and see everything and make sure we're not missing something. But you also should be relying on us as experts. So I think the council was just upset that they found something that we missed, and we will do our best to not miss things in the future.
But the flip side of that is that I'm not sure the name of the group at Falcon Commerce Center approved the design of that building.
I'm always willing to apply, to blame the applicant,
Yeah.
but their job is to submit and get something approved. And but our job is to know, to be your experts and to catch everything. We'll do our best to make sure we don't miss those in the future. We do want you to review the files, but council was upset that they were doing the work of everyone else's. So, or when I say council, I don't mean everybody, but it was, I'm just gonna speak in generalizations on that.
Sure.
That's what changed the flavor of today's workshop a little bit, just hearing all those very direct comments and opinions. We're gonna move forward positively and see what we can do to just protect the community at large for these things in the future and meet their expectations.
So,
You mentioned
yeah,
metal buildings over 20,000 square feet. Is that square footage of the building or is that square footage of metal siding?
square footage of the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the way the code's written, that's industrial. So that's in the industrial section, but you're gonna talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, I'll tell you
So
what
go
though.
for it.
I'm wondering if, for the betterment of our conversation, would it be most useful, again, because my PowerPoint was going on a thought that I had the conversation was actually going to go, and it's changed a bit. Would it be beneficial for me at this point to simply pull up that section of code now where it lives in the industrial uses, and let's just kind of look at that and start the conversation there? It might be beneficial to do that.
Sure.
So how about I?
If I do that, to clarify, this is only applies to industrial, this doesn't apply to commercial. I don't know how often metal buildings are.
Well,
Doesn't now, but I believe I'm understanding that the intent is that it's nesting in the industrial use section is not ideal and that it should be townwide.
that's the feedback we're getting right now. But so Monday night was it was Alpine Buick.
Mhm.
That's not industrial, that's a retail, it's a retail building, right? So the way we would read the code is we would say it's retail, so it doesn't apply, that those rules don't apply to them. Yeah, there are no design guidelines for that, other than what's in the PUD and what's in say the comprehensive plan or other design guidelines, right? But what we're hearing from council right now, or members of council, is that no, that's for all 20,000 square foot or larger buildings. We don't want them to be made out of metal. There's conversation about, well, is that architectural panels that are put on the building, or is that barns, industrial looking buildings, that type of thing? And the truth is it's just not defined that way in our code. So, and we're hearing enough comments that we should be thinking about how do we fix the code so that it's very straightforward, so the applicant knows what they're getting into when they walk in the door. You know what to administer and make recommendations are, and council can say, this is what we meant. And right now it's confusing. And the same thing with pylon signs and ground signs. And then we're going to work on that too. We're going to make sure that it's very clear. So somebody who spends a couple $100,000 preparing their plans to come before you isn't surprised that that's not what we meant.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm doing quotes now. I'm doing quotes for everything.
It's similar to what was discussed during that meeting. Specifically from an applicant, there can be a very large difference between what we see in this first PowerPoint slide as far as metal versus, what's shown on Alpine Buick, like the metal. I don't know how you specify type of metal,
Right.
there can be different types of metal buildings that look nice versus not look nice.
And then that's what Jenna's presentation was. It was trying to talk about the different versions, but it was there was the discussion went in that direction that just against metal buildings. That we're kind of backing on with, okay, do you like this one or this one? To what are the definitions? All the things that you said, Chair, at the beginning. What are things? How can we calculate it? How can we look at it? How can we administer a code, right? And do what they're asking for. So.
All right, so in light of the code looking very small on the screen there, I'm going to read the couple lines of relevant code in relation to that 20,000 benchmark. And so, again, nested in the industrial use section, it mentions this is building features and materials. Metal buildings or buildings which primary exterior surfaces are metal shall not exceed 20,000 square feet in gross floor area before it's determined that the provisions B, C, and D below are applicable. And provisions B, C, and D describe that B, Metal is prohibited as a primary exterior surface on buildings that are visible from a street, park, open space, trail, unless the building meets section 1, so unless it's under 20,000 square feet. Additionally, metal may be used as an accent material covering no more than 20% of the facades when the building or buildings are visible from, again, a street, park, open space, or trail. If metal is to be used along interior lot lines, such facades need to be integrated into the overall building design. And the last one, principal building facade. The building's facades shall include principal building facades shall include all building facades that face adjacent major arterial or intersections. And when a building has more than one principal facade, such building facade shall be consistent in terms of design, materials, detail, and treatment. Building facades associated with new construction shall meet the following standards and include a change in building height, step back or recess, fenestration, change in building material, pattern, texture, and color, or use of accent material. So what we're hearing, of course, is that cutoff from 20,000 square feet and under being okay to have a metal structure, and over 20,000 metal cannot be used as a primary exterior surface. And they list the 20% maximum use of that material, including some other design standards there.
Can you read off the code number? Is it 18 something?
Yes. Oh, of course. I see. We have 18.04.150 industrial uses.
Thank you.
Yes. So that is the code section, and coming back to our slides.
They look like warehouses.
Right. And you get my idea when I had started thinking about the content of our workshop, having the idea of building form in my mind, but now it's more about the material. So
Well, but
I'm not, yeah,
that's okay.
struggling a little bit to kind of reconcile those two paths of conversation.
So why don't we go, I don't think we should be afraid to talk about what we like or we don't like in a building. Whether it's industrial or commercial, it could be a grocery store, it could be a small building or first of all, are there appropriate uses of metal? And what I heard in your definition, your definition, when you talked about, was it majority or primary? What's a different definition of primary? I said 51% of the elevation is metal, so it can't be metal. Or is it a certain percentage? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, you know what you guys don't like, which you might not like. Or you think it really isn't our purview to be judging that either. So, and this is the beginning of the conversation. We're not changing code. We're not coming back next time with a response. We're just trying to start from somewhere and see how we can address this. And
I guess when I think of metal buildings, I think of the steel garage, looks like the corrugated metal that you have on your roof or on the side of the building. I don't think of metal buildings as metal cladding over the panels, the architectural panels that they put on the exterior of a building. That maybe they didn't bring a sample to the planning commission meeting, but from what I saw last night, they had a sample of the material, and frankly, that looked pretty acceptable to me, but that's just me. But when I look at that particular building, it looks more almost like a 50-50 glass and metal building rather than a metal exterior than just a strictly metal building. And so for me, metal buildings look completely different than maybe what we considered for some of these recent projects. And we might be considering for Karl Malone Motorsports and that type of thing moving forward.
And pretty much the only concern is appearance, right? There's nothing else outside of that.
No, I don't. Well, Yeah, I think appearance only because for me, that steel building, that metal building that you look is an oversized barn or garage, looks more temporary or, something that you expect is gonna change hands every 10 years anyway.
And the reason we cut it off at 20,000 square feet is because you just get a flat metal siding.
Yeah.
There's no variation in material and color, I'm assuming is kind of where that's coming from.
Well, your comments there are kind of driving me to that next topic that can nest in with that, the color conversation. I believe that's a concern as well, and I did include a slide just to kind of prime that conversation on what are acceptable colors? Do we want to consider color palettes? Is color really the question, or is a level of reflectance really the question?
That's that, whether the one on the right, I believe is a library.
Yeah, it is.
It's a library, metal panel library.
But to answer Vice Chair Peterson's question, I think that was in general the understanding for the limit of being 20,000 square feet. It was just trying to kind of reduce the amount of space being dedicated to that entire panel of metal.
Because, and the concern with the impact of stating that more than 20%, or is that what it was,
Mhm.
20%? Would that it ultimately just be more of a costly building and prohibit users from coming in because then you have to use some other type of material like precast walls, concrete walls. So then to circle back around, the intent would be to make it more feasible for a user to come in and construct a 20,000 plus square foot building with metal without having to use a separate type of material. Is that right?
That would be the argument to build a metal building.
Yeah, thank
But
you.
let's, they don't, the council is saying that that is not what they want, is large metal buildings.
Mhm.
So, but I absolutely hear your point. Maybe it is a question of form and we just haven't gotten there yet with council. It is
Mhm.
about form and making sure we're breaking up a 20,000 square foot flat metal barn, right? But we just haven't gotten there yet. The focus right now is just that it's metal. And it's up to this group here to kind of, how do we propose to them something different or a different way to look at it?
Yeah, and that was kind of my thought process. If you could have an entire building be metal, but the one on the left doesn't look bad to me.
Mm-mm.
Maybe color, break up the not just have a flat face, have different colors. And maybe that's not a huge deal, but are we trying to veer from that 20% or work that's up for discussion?
I feel like potentially the conversation that we could consider having in a joint meeting would be a two-path discussion, having a path discussion in preparation for we just don't like metal buildings and we're trying to get rid of those, or for what you're mentioning there is some articulation, some horizontal articulation with materials and the roof line and a breakup of color and material at specific intervals, like 30 feet. So it would break up even the left side of that wall we see in the left-hand picture. I feel that, yes, the left-hand picture is a little bit more tolerable. I still feel like it would not be well received because of the left-hand side of that building. And I think if it was integrated with some change in roof line, an additional parapet roof line that they have there, and maybe some change in color and material direction, it would be more accepted. But I think that maybe that conversation could be two paths that we'd be prepared for. Yeah.
Could it also be that, and I think the code talks about visible from major arterials and that type of thing. I mean, if the left side of that building were on the back side where, I don't know, say, for purposes of discussion, it's facing north towards Pilot in this particular example, where it's not really seen by consumers and that type of thing, is it more acceptable to have that versus facing the street to Rosa Drive or somewhere else? I know the backside of the building is going to be more of a service area for that dealership. And I don't mean to be coming back to that, but that's what we have to reference at this point. But how much of the space at the front of the building that is visible is, do we have to be concerned about? So is that considered part of that? The whole,
I love the
function of the
question, and because, when I am kind of driving around Monument and taking in the view shed, I had this in my mind about what is visible from a right of way or property now versus what may be as Monument changes and develops and redevelops. So as far as administration and practice of that view shed quality, I would just want us to really think that out as far as detail and code writing in that section. But it's a valuable element to consider, because why would we be applying extra requirements on a non-visible facade to the back? But yeah, that's valuable.
So I'll just chime in.
Please.
It sounds to me like, one, you want to have a long series of work groups to address this issue. Right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so we're in the plan to plan phase of what we need to discuss over the next several months, perhaps. I have no idea how
Yeah.
long this may take, but I mean, it sounds to me like council says all buildings. That means residential, industrial, historical section, non-historic. So I think right now we just need to get all these ideas on paper and capture, like, okay, how does this impact downtown? What are the benefits to having metal sides from an insurance perspective to businesses coming in? Perhaps it decreases their fire insurance because, things like that. Yeah, it might be ugly to beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Some people are going to be offended by all the metal. Oh my gosh. But at the end of the day, they're doing it because their insurance is maybe driving them to do it or such, right? I just think that we're in that initial plan to plan phase. So I'm wondering, how are we gonna capture?
You know what I'm hearing right now are a lot of questions. Maybe really what we need to be doing is just writing down those questions. And we don't know if they're gonna be questions that we're gonna deliver to council and say, give us answers. Or if it's just a way to start the conversation, maybe what can we do as staff to provide you homework and.
Well, I go back to because I have to refer to this, I'm like, what is my purpose here on this commission? What am I here to do besides,
Right.
get after our master plan? And zoning regulations, we make and recommend regulations for the uses of land and structures. So understanding in detail, like the reference codes, the codes, the industrial use of these features, like where are the gaps? Again, if the council says, hey, we have to apply to everything. All right, now we have a gap existing in residential. Now we have a gap existing in the historical, what I would call the historical sector. And at the same time, does that open up new issues like, okay, well, we do have a historical sector. Maybe we need to really buckle down and look at others. Like, I come from a small town and you can't build in the historical sector unless you use wood or you use this, and it has to mirror things that were built in the 1800s. So again, like you said, it's a lot of questions, a lot of gaps, information gaps. And is appearance really the only driver for this? Is that really the subjective driver for, I don't want to look at a metal building?
I don't know the answer to that.
I can only give you my impression being that there's an idea or tone that allowing metal buildings to be anywhere, it gives the town a bit of a less valuable appearance. It maybe cheapen the appearance visually of the architecture and structures throughout the town. And again, I'm just speaking from the one or two very brief bits of feedback that I've been getting to try to guide our conversation. I do very much like your highlighting of the holes. As I was going through creating this conversation and slideshow, I had much more included, and the conversation of the holes about residential and can we do that, and would it be competing with HOA regulations, and what about accessory structures and all of these holes. And I felt like it was just a lot to be discussing the first time conversation. So absolutely to all of those considerations.
Yeah, we just have to capture them somewhere and understand that as we go forward, that plan where we keep ourselves on track, just like any other project. Like, okay, this is where we need to talk about this.
Okay.
And give those maybe homeowners a chance to chime in our
Well,
public meetings.
let's try to simplify it a little bit though. We're talking about buildings greater than 20,000 square feet. So I think we're safe on a house or a shed. We're talking about big buildings, big structures. So maybe that helps us eliminate a bunch that we don't have to worry about right now. There aren't too many buildings that size.
Our short-term target.
Our short-term, right, our short-term target, let's look at big buildings, what should they be built out of? Or if they're, or how do we define them, what are they looking for? So maybe building a list of questions is a way for plan commission to say, we heard what you said last Monday and in previous meetings. We want to address it, but here are our questions. And maybe we deliver, we deliver your message to them or your list of questions to them. And whether it's done in a combined meeting, or maybe we just have them talk about it on their own and respond back to you with a memo saying, here, plan commission, here are our concerns, here are our thoughts. Because I think you're working right now in the dark. That's a lot. I know I am. We're working in the dark on some stuff. So maybe that's a way to start the dialogue with plan commission. And again, more importantly, I want to show the plan commission has a role in this discussion and you guys take it seriously. And I know you do, but I want them to know that, okay, you've said this, how do we fix this? How do we address this and give you a recommendation that you can work with? Does that make sense? Sorry, this is on the fly because this really came out of, this really
Thinking
came,
about our next step. and
yeah,
how
this
we
really
create
just
that
came-
communication.
Jen and I were not thinking about it this way at all on Monday until that plan commission meeting. So, and I don't want the developer to ever go through this. I want, unless they chose to. I'm just not gonna do what you're out telling me to do. I want them to know what the rules of the game are, and this is what our expectations are. We're actually at the right place because we're writing the comp plan. One of our first conversations we had before Monday was Jenna talked with Andy Cross over at Lakota Group, who's working on our comp plan, and said, how should I start this conversation so it goes into the comp plan? So we're in the right place. But I do think there's a dialogue that you need to have with council. So that you can come up with an acceptable recommendation or for these 20,000 square foot or greater buildings.
Is it appropriate for that communication to come from me, i.e. yes, collecting the conversation in a form of questions to guide directive at our next group?
It's a transmittal memo that
Okay,
based
great.
on minutes and
Yeah.
as long as we're portraying their thoughts, we're not editing them for our benefit. I mean, it's really their questions.
Okay.
I think that works.
If you feel more comfortable doing that, and then if you need me to, or anyone else from the planning commission to be present, I certainly volunteer to be there to answer questions directly from the council or support anything that you put forward to them.
I think that would go actually a long way at council if we are presenting this, if that's what ends up happening, that you're there or
Sure.
and anyone's welcome to go to council.
Right.
But I think it's rather than staff saying this is what's going on. This is really, even though our code is very interesting, our code allows for council to change the code without going to planning commission. It says it's their responsibility, but then it's your job to administer it. I would like to make you the experts who make recommendations, so that way when you do make a recommendation, you can administer it later and understand why you're doing it. So,
Yeah, I envision us here over the next many years digging into code language at workshops often and
Yeah.
creating that here and then making recommendations of language.
So one of the questions I had about this is that what you've cited so far is strictly with the industrial portion of the code.
Mhm.
And what prompted all this conversation is a commercial building, essentially. So what does the commercial side say?
nothing.
No.
So wouldn't the PUD be able to,
Well-
would we be able to, as a PUD?
Yes,
Go ahead.
no, you're correct. We could do that, but you still need to fall back on something. The comp plan says buildings, the community generally wants buildings, anything greater than 200,000 square feet are built this way or have form this way. Right now, you're just coming up with stuff. And that's not fair to the community. You're not gonna be consistent.
Right.
And it's not fair to the person making that large investment that they're walking in, not knowing what the town wants.
You're right.
So, and that's why the comp plan is so important. That's why the codes can be so important. Typically, we would have gone through this exercise through the comp plan, and then there would be implementation steps to say, go revise the code to do the following things. And we're gonna do that anyway, but this is kind of getting ahead of
That's
that.
pretty good.
So is the purpose, we're gonna change this so that it's just not industrial? We're gonna change it so it covers the whole town or
I
what?
think that's the message we're getting from council right now, is they didn't, what I heard is this wasn't meant to be only industrial.
Okay,
It was buildings greater than I think I made the building bigger, 20,000 square feet.
you did. You said
And 2 million square feet. Any buildings made greater than 20,000 square feet should not be metal, made primarily out of metal. And we didn't know, okay, so that's the rule. What's primary? What's acceptable? Are there things that you can, that we can incentivize to do certain things and you get more metal? Or is that off the table? I don't know. There's lots of things. If you provide more open space and parks, can you do a little bit more metal over here? You do green infrastructure, can you do this differently? What are the things we could talk about for buildings greater than 20,000 square feet? And we'll educate ourselves, staff and plan commission, and then we'll educate and gain more information from council. And then ultimately write a code that supports it, so that way you guys can consistently administer it to different developments that come before you.
To your point, it provides a level of fairness to the developer, to the applicant when they come in. Kind of like your point last night on the fees. As long as they know what the fees are before they come in.
They'll charge the right amount for the house.
They're okay.
Right.
I'm willing, maybe not okay, but at least they have an understanding.
Mhm.
And the same with this. It's only fair to them that they know what the field looks like, rather than, okay, this is what it looks like up to the 50-yard line. After that, it's kind of foggy. So, take your chances.
Yeah,
So,
I'm looking to understand from town council, ultimately taking their temperature of what can be possible implementing into the architecture of a metal building to make it acceptable. Like Dan is mentioning,
Yeah.
other trade-offs, parks, trails, open space, those kind of things, but are there some architectural measures as well that you can deal with that makes that affordable to some of our local developers? And we're potentially not driving business away, but also meeting those design desires that you have. The market's getting expensive to build, so.
But the incentivized carrot not stick, or carrot not the stick, right?
Right.
Those are things we're gonna be looking at that anyway after the comp plan. I always like to use Chicago as an example, not that I'm trying to turn this community into Chicago. But taller buildings have big plazas in front of them. That's not by accident. If you build an open space and plaza in front of your building, you were given the permission to do different things with your building that you couldn't do before. We'll be looking at those type of things as we're going, because what are the things we really want the community to look like and feel like and be built out like?
right.
And then how do we incentivize rather than penalize to get those
Sure.
things? So, but that's going beyond what this initial conversation is. But so, I don't know, what do you think about, you send an email out to plan commission members and say, what are your questions? And let them actually send them to you individually. We're not gonna do any group conversation. And then next time when we come together, we'll pull that list out. If there are things that we can answer because they're technical or building material wise, or how's the insurance industry? Is there a benefit to by the insurance industry for building a certain type of structures? We can get those answers. And the other things that are really more of a feeling that we need to pass to council, you guys as a group can decide, this is what we want to submit to council. Does that make sense to you, or am I skipping a step?
No,
I'm looking at you because I know you're a process master, so I'm trying thinking how that brings, yeah.
like I said, I'm ultimately looking at the end state. It's a simple problem. Supposedly, you've got a dealership, commercial retailer who's over 20,000 and it's got metal in it.
Mhm.
Town council's like, we don't like that. It looks bad. Go back and fix it, planning commission or planning team.
Mhm.
So, but if you change one thing, times go cost or something, it's going to change everything else. I just don't know what the end state is. If we give them the information, are they going to write the code that they want us to implement? Or is it our job to say, you know what, we need to look at this from a holistic town of monument approach and say it doesn't make sense to put these conditions on a commercial retailer because of A, B, and C, or it does make sense. Like, how far in design are we gonna get into? Again, you can see the stone facade, that could maybe cover the metal. Does that count? Is it now a metal facade that it has the little fake
That-
stone over it?
That's,
Things like that.
that's why I'm saying I think we need to develop those questions. And ultimately, at the end of your transmittal, it's gonna say, if you can answer these, we will come up with a recommendation for the code. And we'll pass that back to you and you can let us know. I want you to be responsible for solving this problem, not them. They've got many big things going on. You're the working group for them, when it comes to land development. So, that's why I proposed that we collect a list of questions. They could either be for us or for in general to council. I don't mind you challenging them either. Like, okay, we're doing this, how this impacts it, but put your list together. Jenna will go through those and bring them back to you as a group. And we can prioritize them. We can realize there's duplicates. We can expand on them. And then there's a formal transmittal that'll go back to council saying, this is what we identified. And, what do you want? How can we, what do you want for this? And then we will go work on the code.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, by doing that, we at least include Commissioner Hatch and Commissioner Trujillo, who aren't here
Right.
tonight. They can also contribute their questions. And I mean, I'll be happy to come in and help you sort through the questions if need be. And
Yeah.
prepare that memo for everybody.
Yeah,
So,
because showing up like once a month and within an hour to me is not enough if you're gonna work your group. I need constant touch points to be able to feed and give feedback.
We can meet more often too. I mean,
I wanna volunteer everybody's time.
Well, you guys have to talk about it because it's your time and you're volunteering for this. So we could meet more often because if this is a hot enough topic, you guys could take it that way and we will facilitate that and do that. I agree. I think that once a month it's gonna drag it on. And I don't think anyone here's intent has any intention to drag something on. But I would leave that to you. You have lives, jobs, children, family. I'm not gonna step out in front of you and tell you have to meet every Thursday.
I don't have most of that, so I can do anything.
So we're gonna go ahead and John can handle all of it.
well, I think that, I think there's a bit of a sense of urgency as well, just to be fair to the applicants and anybody else that's coming in. I mean, dirt has to be bought and additional things, other resources have to be laid out. So it's only fair that we try to reach this as quickly, but not at a point where we rush it and make mistakes or have any regrets. But
An immediate concrete goal is to have council rewrite the code.
Not council.
We want you to rewrite the code, but
Yeah.
right now you don't necessarily understand what their primary, what they're trying to address. Other than just, right, right now, we just know they don't want, they're talking about they shouldn't be any metal buildings over 20,000 square feet.
So I'm looking forward to seeing your questions, organizing them in a way that will make town council think about their answers, highlight the holes. I would bring that to you all to evaluate, and then you would task me with drafting options of code language, and you all will workshop it and decide what you like, what meets the desired goal the best. And that process will probably happen several times, taking it here to council, bringing it back, work on it a little bit more. I will certainly be drafting options of language. You're going to tell me what you like and what you don't like, and meeting your intention and what's not. So.
And once we land on language, what's the timeline to rewrite code and get that implemented? Like once we finalize what we're after and we're rewriting code, how long does that take?
As far as
Do that
the
in terms-
public noticing
Yeah.
to change the code, we'd have to public notice for town council for land use code amendment. Yeah, the town council. I still have in mind that you go
I know.
planning commission, town council for.
There's public hearing is the council and that's notice of the
Yeah.
ordinance. So,
So I mean, this is probably 6 months. access.
I envision.
It could be.
Unless we're meeting more.
Unless we're meeting more, and we have I've got our town attorney to assist us in writing the code. I think it's just the definitions of what we're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
And I think if we keep focused to the small question, not letting it expand out, you sound like a planner right now, actually. Because that's all I do
I got
every
it.
day. And so I just let it expand out to trying to address everything. But if we can get it down to buildings buildings over 20,000 square feet have to be this way, and whether it's industrial or not, and we'll create a design, and ultimately what we have is a section called design guidelines for buildings over 20,000 square feet.
Mhm.
And we put it in there, here's the things you want, and it'll probably pull some of the stuff from the industrial section. It might have some new stuff. Maybe there's an incentive program of some sort built in there. It shouldn't take that long.
As far as like actual code language for architectural standards, like I said, I pulled myself way back from this conversation and really scaled it down because conversations with the Lakota group indicated that our discussion this evening would be 3.5 hours long based on what I have. To ease your mind, I have about 8 to 10 pages of draft code language already. So we'll have options to choose from to see where the level of regulation is going to be comfortable for those larger buildings. So we'll have things to consider, images to look at, to see what the outcome would look like if we implemented this or that. So we have some background work done already. I didn't want to take your whole night.
Yeah.
And based on, again, Monday evening, I needed to kind of bring it back a little bit.
Sounds good. Part of
Yeah.
my questioning this part is from the source of any concern of how fast we need to try to do this based on possible current applicants or possible applicants coming in.
Well, one of the things they brought up at council is placing a moratorium on metal buildings. So they're making it important enough right now that we're gonna try to address this as quickly or expedite as quickly as we can, or reasonably can. Development community is gonna have to respond in some form too. It is all public information. They can come to council and talk as well if they need to. But I think council made a pretty stern response that they want to see this addressed for all types of large buildings, not just industrial, so.
So that motorsports building had metal panels in it that we're going to look at.
It did, and they are going back and reevaluating, and hopefully they'll come back with something that that addresses this, at least the council's concerns, so they don't get held up.
Yeah, I just.
And that's everyone's choice, right?
Yeah.
The car dealership can go back and choose to address it and just so they can get in the ground faster.
Metal building doesn't seem like that big a deal to me. Maybe it's just me. It seems like a lot for, there are certain circumstances that,
Again, like a car, an automotive, car dealer, not even a dealership, an automotive shop. You might deal with welding or things like that are fire hazards. Again, there's reasons that some of these buildings are metal. So,
And concrete,
and concrete.
right? There's things that are built into it, and I'm not wondering why. I'm not wondering why they object to it. I directly, I need to know the specifics so I can try to address that.
Sounds good.
That's fine, we can ask that, but maybe if we can come up with those specific questions, make them think about that. And maybe there are better ways to address it than just saying no. That,
There's so
okay,
many options.
there's so many things and we don't know. It's
I'm
so
ready for that
early.
conversation. Like
Yeah.
if they're interested in moving quicker, then I would like to go in tandem with Monument 2040, but if the desire is to move faster, we can be ready. There's lots of options and lots of fun options just to be considered.
Right. But, yeah, so this is a start.
Do we need to go ahead and establish the deadline for submission of those questions then? That everyone's comfortable with,
Yeah.
in particular, Jenna, since you're compiling everything.
Sure. Look at my calendar real quick.
So would this just be questions from the council or questions from anyone?
These are questions you're asking council.
But we are asking.
You're gonna ask council. Or yourselves. I mean, you're just posing questions. What do we need to answer? What do they need to answer to you? So you can create a valid.
What if a developer says, okay, 20,000, I'll just build 2 8,000 foot or two
That's-
80,000 foot
that's
square
a great-
buildings with.
So Santa Fe,
There's workarounds. There's always loopholes.
Buildings.
Yeah,
that's right.
So is it more,
Didn't like that either.
yeah, I mean, is that more acceptable than one 60,000 square foot building?
yeah.
You know,
You know, a lot of houses have metal roofs. You know, is that
I-
acceptable?
Well, again, we're talking about 20,000, that's a really big house, so
Yeah.
20,000 square feet.
Yeah, we don't have it.
But, okay, but so that might be, what are the repercussions of our decisions? So we say no 20,000 square foot buildings can be made out of metal. I, as whoever I am, I'm gonna open it up to 10,000 square foot buildings so that I can get around that. Well, that could happen. Now, is that acceptable? Is that what we're looking for, smaller metal buildings, or? I don't have answers for you today. I'm still, our heads are just still trying to spin to how do we best address this so we don't find ourselves in that position again? And that they turn to you as the folks who are administering their code the way they want, so.
So I'm not anticipating, unless I'm misunderstanding, I'm not anticipating taking these questions and presenting them at the next town council meeting or the May 4th meeting. I'm anticipating email communications from you all to those questions to me and me communicating those questions via email to town council for their response. And then pulling those all together in amalgamation and well, we'll see when that information comes in and taking it from there.
Their next meeting's on 4/20. I don't
Right.
think we're gonna get to that one.
No.
Then the meeting after that is May 4th.
I
That's
don't anticipate being ready to present something with only one side of that conversation.
It really we might present it to them as a memo. I'll talk to the town manager about that.
Okay.
Maybe it's a memo that they have a chance to respond to her or to me directly, and then I bring it back to you. We'll have to figure that
Okay.
out. But we have to create some kind of a loop here.
So-
We need a communication loop. And
If
then,
it works best, how about a two weeks from now?
so the 22nd.
Yeah, that'd be great.
sure.
Yeah, because that would give me time if perchance we do want it on the May 4th deadline. That gives me a couple days to kind of formulate some simple thoughts.
Okay,
Everybody feel comfortable with that?
I really appreciate the time you're gonna spend on this. It's actually a good warm up for the comp plan, so.
Yeah.
Because then when that final document comes in front of you, you're gonna be doing the same thing. Well, what do you mean? What do we do with this? How do we get this done? Andy, what the heck did you mean by that? So, this is a good warm up.
And the format of the questions, we can either phrase those questions or format those questions as directed to the council or to the planning department.
I would direct them to town council or just kind of open-ended
Okay.
information seeking.
We're gonna bring them back to you anyway, so you can see how Jenna took them and organized them. Maybe she'll have groupings of certain questions, and then you might want to reward them so they're more direct or not. Let's be constructive.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we're constructive with it. There's evidently a feeling here about this stuff and how, okay, great. These are the questions we need answered before we can come up with a way to actually create a regulation that'll help us do that for you.
My question is like, does the roof constitute part of the exterior surface?
That's a
So,
great question.
so we take a 20,000 square foot building and I clad it with the non-metal, it's all metal, but then I cover it up with brick. But I still have this 20,000 square foot roof over it. Is that gonna be a problem? We talked about this today. Does that roof have that, and typically in a steel building, there is no eaves, that it's the roof and then it's well. Okay, well, maybe that's a problem. Maybe we make sure that there are eaves installed or created in that. And then what is that? What's the result? It looks like this, it costs this much. I will always point out that if we're too tough, the business will go to Castle Rock. That's just, or it'll find its way back down to the Springs. It'll skip us. Nobody here wants to do business where it's hard. We all want to get it done and go somewhere else. The market only could dictate so much. So ask those questions. Those are fair. And they'll give you an honest answer. And we can just figure out how to deal with that.
Do we send this to you, Jenna?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, everything will go through Jenna. Okay.
I hope you do.
So much questions.
I hope you do.
No, because I'm already thinking of like courses of action, right?
Mhm.
Like, okay, do you really need to change the code at all? Just change it to where you can you can keep your 20,000 square foot metal side, but it has to be covered with something, you know, if it's all about appearance, then
Just
there's.
break it up.
There's to
Certain
get around it.
square footage, maybe left here. You know, allows this amount of square footage of straight metal, and then you gotta break it up somehow.
Hence my 10 drafted pages of
Yeah.
code language. My brain went exactly the same direction. I was like, I got lots of ideas. Let me put them down.
Yeah.
I need to be sure we're following the right direction, so.
Many brains make light
Yeah.
work.
Maybe you don't even want the 20,000 square foot, maybe any building. It can only have so much metal.
Where does it stop? I don't know.
And what kind of implication does that have for the town of Monument and our business and economic development and local developers and all of that?
We're attracting others from developers from other places. We want money from far away to come in here. We don't, local money's great, but we want money from somewhere else to come in.
And you saw from my presentation, there's other considerations as we get down the line for exceptions and, you know, random cases where director approval is gonna be needed, so we haven't even gotten into that.
It's
6 months.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Jane. Good stuff.
Right. No, I don't think it's wrong, but I think it's important, because, councils want something dealt with and either shut down or deal with, or come up with an answer. So I would rather us come up with an answer as quickly as we can.
I really appreciate the group being willing to have a little bit casual conversation. It helps to just kind of get the brain flowing a little bit, and me, one person in one room with a couple other planners is not enough. So I really appreciate the help.
And as I mentioned, yeah,
Yeah.
as I mentioned in previous meetings, if there are certain topics that you want, it doesn't all have to be driven from the council. If there's certain topics that you would like to talk about, planning, please stick with planning. We can come down to this level anytime and have a workshop.
How do you want to address that? Do we just send you an email? Because I've already had some people from the community come to me about the old school building, wanting to discuss the sale of that and possible uses and zoning. So how do we?
The old school building, what's it called again? No,
Big Red?
not Big Red. No, that's not the old school building. It's the smaller one behind it. Great, right, Grace.
Grace Best.
Grace Best. That's being torn down.
Yes.
There's no discussion about that. Now the school board is having, they're having a planning visioning meeting.
Mhm.
That's, I'm going to be able to participate in it. I hope it's a public meeting, so anybody can come in and watch it and be part of it, I think. That probably isn't our role. Our role would be to develop a comp plan that kind of gives them the guidelines and the foundation of what they do over there. But that's their property, so I would probably ask your neighbors to ask their school how they might be able to get involved with that. D38, yeah. But they are going through a visioning process. They are trying to figure it out. They do have requests that they're trying to request for development or purchasing land and so on. And they realize they need to think bigger and have a bigger picture. And I'm actually going to meet with them tomorrow to start that conversation of how we can make sure that their plans align with the town's plans.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Sure.
I very much invite questions about, can we talk about this or that? It would be so nice if we're workshopping and discussing things other than current applications. Yeah,
All right. What do you get to ask everyone?
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and a second, and we are adjourned.
Awesome, thank you.